I love the way the First Gen Lounge makes me feel.
Because it creates a space where I belong.
Where we're able to create community.
The fact that it's a community.
It's a safe place.
It also gives me a place to understand different perspectives.
The stories of these individuals prescribe transformational perspective.
I receive encouragement, enlightenment, empowerment.
And also serve as a catalyst to just keep going.
Where we're able to be our true selves.
I'm allowed to be an unapologetic first gen.
And above all else, tell our story.
And every episode is unique.
I love it.
I'm your host, Dr. Eve, and I'd like to welcome you to the First Gen Lounge.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi. Aren't I happy? I think that you should be happy too, right? Because life is too short to not be happy. Like, no matter what we go through, it is entirely too short to not be happy, to not find the good in the day, in the circumstance, and all that jazz. So I was thinking about what to talk about, what to say right now that I thought would make a difference, or that would, inspire, empower, uplift you. I definitely consider the time of the year, and I know that many of you are gearing up for graduation coming up. Like, kudos to you. Shout out to the class of 2020. And by the way, if you haven't seen, I'm doing features for the next several weeks for those of you who are graduating. So be sure to go to the website, and I'll also put a link in the description for you to get to it. But fill out the information so I can shout you out and let the world know how incredible you are. So it's been fun stuff. But I was thinking about, just thinking specifically about graduation, let me put it that way, and how upsetting and disappointing it has been for so many of you to be in a time where you've worked really hard for this thing to happen. And here comes this big grand celebration, this formal tradition, and it's not happening. Not the way you want it to, not the way you thought that it would. It's just kind of like a punch in the gut that this would even be taking place. So my thought process is, why don't I just tell you about a situation that happened to me that I believe would offer some perspective about dealing with times like this, when, especially graduation. So, as you notice, this show is when graduating is disappointing. and I wanted to open up, again, like I said, about something that happened with me around the graduation, with hopes that I could offer you some comfort during this time, and that you were able to see what's happening from a different light. So I graduated with my doctorate some years ago. We're not going to count the number. And it was one of the most exciting things to happen in my life. One of the best days of my life, as a matter of fact. I was 28 when I was hooded, and I'd worked really hard to get through my doctoral program. It was going really fast. I had a graduate assistantship. That was part of the reason it went really fast. I'd worked a job in between time, quit a job, start another job, left that job to move home, end up not moving home, stayed in Mississippi. Like, the journey for me was definitely not a straight and narrow. It was one that had me all over the place. But nonetheless, the day that I graduated was, again, one of the best days of my life. And I can't even tell you how enthused, how excited I was to be graduating and to be a doctor. Like, holy crap, I'm a doctor. And one of the things that you may or may not know is that in becoming a doctor, you actually finish the requirements for your degree a few months prior to graduating. So although I was already technically Dr. Hudson before December, I was still in the space where, that particular ceremony, that formalization of the degree was a really, really big thing. And so anyway, when I say it was a really big year for me, because I got married like a few months prior, had our first Thanksgiving at our house. So, moved back home. Everything was just really going wonderful. Like, life was ideal. And even for all the time that I lost, so I felt in the years prior from having gone to college and moved away and just being for my family, kind of felt like everything had just kind of come full circle for me. So to the story, okay, get to the point. So graduation day, I had it in my mind that everybody in the world was going to be at my graduation to celebrate this milestone because it's litty. Like, your girl then made it. Like, she out here doing it. Go Eve, go Eve, go. And I was completely surprised. And I would even say, as I've expressed to Mr. Dr. Hudson, one of the best days of my life was also one of the saddest days of my life because of the people who didn't come to my graduation. Now, it took me a little while to go back and look at that time of my life and to find forgiveness in what happened, right? But you couldn't tell me on the day that I graduated that I wouldn't have bullhorns and balloons and a whole crowded section with signs. And when I say crowded section, I'm not talking about like 100 people, right? I'm talking about like everybody in my family and really close friends, just like everybody would be there. But that didn't happen for me. And that's what made it one of the saddest days of my life. And I was really grateful for the people who were able to come to my graduation and celebrate. But in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, nobody else in my family or, among my friends have gotten this degree. This is a really big deal. So this is going to be the turn up of the decade. Like, we all going to be here. This is going to be everything. In my head, that's what I made it. And I also assumed that because I had made the invites and sent them out early enough that people were going to respond. But even if they didn't respond, they would just show up. And I never thought that even family, right? I mean, because mind you, I've been gone for years and I'm getting my groove back. Like, you go away, do your thing, you come back home, all good. But even that transition wasn't quite that simple for me, which I'll explain one of these days. But yeah, so the few people that did come to my graduation, we had a really good time. I was really, really grateful for it. But I could not for a long time get over the hurt because graduating for me felt like such a disappointment because of the lack of celebration around this big thing that I had accomplished. Hindsight, especially being a first generation graduate, I had expectations of what should happen. Although that didn't match the reality of what did happen, a selfish part of me only wanted things to happen the way that I wanted them to happen. Because it's my day. Similar to when people get married, it's my day. It should go my way. Oh, it was my day. I worked hard for it. I got myself through school. I never called and asked for anything. It was like the least that anybody could do was just show up. And it was even more hurtful when I had family and friends within the state that didn't come. And I was thinking, my gosh, I was mad at everybody, like, who didn't show for a long time. Because I was like, how could you not be there? This is really, really big for me. It's so disappointing. And I know I keep saying that, but playing it back in my mind, I just remember thinking that there would be this big dinner and everybody would come down to Mississippi for the first time. And this is just going to be a grand occasion. Because when I graduated from undergrad, it felt that way. Now, while I was a doctorate, so much different from the master's. My master's degree, I actually didn't even make that big of a deal about because I'm just like, oh, it's just a master's. I mean, right? Like, everybody gets a master's every day. Crazy, girl, you're crazy. But I knew that this doctorate thing was just huge because nobody else, beyond the master's at that point, in my head, I knew that other family members would eventually get a master's. Like, I had the belief in them. And it's not that I didn't believe that they could become doctors, but I didn't think there was even an interest for like some of my cousins and all. But especially being my mama's baby. And again, just kind of continuing to push forward and moved away from home for years, a big deal. Like, everything comes full circle. So yeah, that time felt like, what was it all worth and what was it all for if I had nobody to celebrate it with, if it wasn't this big party, if it wasn't this thing that I made it up in my mind that it would be, if I didn't have a certain dream come true with this particular thing. Like, that sucks. So in saying that, because it's so easy to put our thoughts and project our views about how things in our life should be on other people, when that's absolutely not fair to them or even to yourself. So in the forgiveness part, I never even told my family at large how I felt, right? Because my family, they're not bad people. And that's the other thing. It's like, dang, they didn't come. How could they do that? How could they do that? Nah, like, let's be for real, folks. People got lives and they got other things to do. You are not the most important person in a lot of people's lives, and you won't be. And as crazy as it may sound, it's just for real, because it's something that I've had to learn through life. And I say all the time, a part of this show is for me to be honest with you about how things are after you're finished with college, be it that, I get college or grad school. It's being honest, to have these honest conversations that I wish I had more of. But anyway, my family, they're not bad people. They just didn't come to my graduation. Not all of them. And I held it against and thinking, why was I not important? What was happening that, how many other doctors do y'all see in this family? And y'all only gonna come through? Saying that to say this, what you're experiencing and feeling right now about what's happening around graduation is very valid and it's very real. But my hope is that you look at the situation objectively. One of these days when you can remove the feelings about how everything was supposed to be with graduating and all the work that you've put into this and the blood, sweat, and tears, and you look at the bigger picture and realize that what's happening is something that's even beyond your control. It's something that you couldn't do anything about, and it's not a reflection of you or anything that you did wrong. And I also hope that how disappointed you feel right now is something that you can take and use for motivation. Because I found myself harboring feelings of disappointment. That's a new word now? Yes. Disappointment and sadness for so long that it was getting in the way of me enjoying my life and other things for fear that they wouldn't work out the way I wanted them to. For example, I kind of stopped having gatherings and get-togethers thinking that people weren't going to show up. But now, mind you, there were also a few other situations in that year where I felt like the people who I loved the most didn't show up for me. But I'd also say this, after having been gone from home and beyond home, just North Carolina for so many years, a lot of dynamics and relationships changed. But the thing is that sometimes we're in situations we only want to see things our way. But what do you do when you put yourself in the other person's shoes? And what do you do when you look at the situation from a different lens? How is it then? Graduating is absolutely one of the biggest accomplishments, especially when you value education. But the thing is that because you value graduation and you value education and what it symbolizes, also means that you've got to learn to value yourself and celebrate who you are and what you've accomplished even more. You've got to be able to look at what you've done and know that the internal gratitude, the internal feelings that you have, that proudness, it should run much deeper than anything else external. Because what I learned from graduating disappointed was that I was placing too much emphasis on being proud based on what was happening externally and not internally. Even that to say, there are three things that I've kind of already touched on, but I just really want to drive home. If you're graduating 2020, and this is one of the most interesting things that I think the world has ever seen, especially around this season. And I said the world's ever seen, even thinking about, in our lifetime, like who in our lifetime has seen anything like what's going on right now? Nobody. I don't know anybody who's 300 or 400 years old. But here are a few things I want you to consider. Again, perspective that I want you to have as you're continuing to figure this thing out, mix into what's happening, to find some relief, to find some peace so that you can move forward. Now, again, I touched on it a little bit already, but do something to make you feel good. It's so, so, so important that you learn how to celebrate yourself now. Because what you'll find is that there will be many moments in the future when you're going to do something really outstanding. And you may look for somebody to pat you on the back, somebody to praise you, somebody to tell you good job. But you may find that there's nobody clapping or even paying much attention. So one of the lessons that's important to learn with that is even in your career and being able to see that balloons and a good job for something that you worked hard for, it's not always going to be possible. It has nothing to do with you as a person. It's just what it is. It's just life. So it really helped me when a mentor was saying to me once, at a time that I didn't want to hear it, I just did not want to hear this, that just because it's important to me doesn't mean it's important to other people. And that other people can be friends, family, mentors, all alike. So when you're doing things that you're doing in this life, make sure that you're doing them for you. Because a part of me did have this association with, I'm getting these degrees out here for my family. I'm putting off my family. I'm doing it for the Blakeys. This is what we do. And, what do you mean this is what we do? Everybody get a degree. You're like, nah, this is what we do. We work hard. We go hard. We show up. We do these things. And I know that's part of why I had that disappointment. I made this degree so important for me and my family. But that was me. That was my mission. Had nothing to do with everybody else. And again, my family ain't bad people. How could they not be bad people when they didn't come to your graduation? Y'all gotta understand, when people got to work and take care of their families, that's priority. And that's something I was not willing to accept or understand at the point. Everybody stop what you're doing and come and celebrate me. Nah, sorry. We have things doing. That don't mean we don't love you. That don't mean we'll have your back. That don't mean we support you. That don't mean that we're not talking about you and telling all our friends how proud we are. So that was a perspective that I just didn't have at the time, that I waste a lot of time being resentful about, that I wish I would have been like, dang, that is real. Like, what am I thinking? The second thing that I want you to consider is that, remember, you can't control everything. I kind of touched on it earlier, but you really can't control everything. And sometimes it's easy to get caught up in this, if only I do this, if only I do that, if I do this thing this way, this should happen, this is the plan. But life is full of unexpected surprises. And even when you have done everything that you can do to the T, it doesn't mean that things are going to go the way that you'd hope that they would go, that you worked hard for it to go. It's so perfect. Now, that doesn't mean that whatever's happened is created to take away from what you worked hard for. But again, life is life, and life happens. And you'll even find, as you're navigating your career, there are going to be a lot of projects that you're going to put blood, sweat, and tears into. And then seeming like in a second, a supervisor can come in and make a change, and it deters all your plans. It gets so frustrating. And it's like, what? Are you serious right now? But remembering, it's about the group. It's about what's best for the business. And even in this situation, the decision to not have graduations is about the group now being the world, and doing what's best for the organization, even the institutions, and protecting both them, you, and your families. But again, the world, in spite of what's happening right now, it is a good decision. If it's hurtful, if it's disappointing, yeah, it's all of those things, but it's something that you couldn't do anything about. And because of that, that's one way to help find some peace about what's happening. When you're in a space where you absolutely can do something about something and you don't, that's a different thing. When you have the ability to change something, you don't. But if you just can't change something, don't spend another minute, another hour, another thought being caught up in what should have changed, what woulda, coulda, shoulda, and find that will to just go on and take it as a lesson learned, that as long as you did your best, then that best was good enough. And the third thing I want to really marinate on as you are navigating this disappointment of graduation, which I even challenge you to look at disappointment earlier. So, gotta catch you, gotta give you the hook, gotta catch you. Like, let's talk about disappointment. But you gotta change the way you look at things. And I don't remember who said it first, but if you can't change the situation, change the way you look at it. I feel like that was our girl Maya. Was that Maya Angelou? I think it was Maya. But it's really true. When you are in situations like now, you can't forget how powerful your mind is. And if you keep sitting with all the negativity around what's happening, this is devastating, this is heartbreaking, this is disappointing, that's exactly what it's going to be. And you're going to be so consumed with it that you're not going to be able to see all the other things. This is a time now that I get to spend with my family. This is a time now that we can even just celebrate together all month long and through the summer, just us together. This is a time where I can truly connect with my friends. This is a time where I actually just get to take a break. This is a time when we can actually save some money, because I can't speak for you, but me being first gen and again, finding that piece about my doctoral graduation, at the end of the day, I knew that the expense to travel to Mississippi is a lot. And people just don't have several thousands of dollars sitting around to make turnaround trips. And that's fair. That's very fair. So in that, think about even for your family that it might be a helpful thing that there's that burden that you no longer have to worry about, that can honestly go towards savings for you, throwing a dope ass cookout when all this is said and done, or for those of you who are a little more bougie, don't want to do a cookout, brunch. But even in that thought process, when we start to change the way we look at things and we start to be able to appreciate all things that happen, we'll find that we are often a lot less disappointed when situations such as this arise. And when I even say thinking about disappointment, are you disappointed or is life deciding, right? Life is deciding. And if life is deciding, can you be in alignment with what life is deciding and go with the flow of things? And that mindset piece is critical, because I realized that the more I spent time thinking about how disappointed I was about my graduation, I was not allowing love in from anywhere else. I wasn't giving credit to the fact that I did have family who came to support me. We went to dinner, we took pictures, we laughed, they got to see how I lived, and I wasn't all stressed out and all over the place. Like, there were so many things in the end, and I'm like, man, and that was a really beautiful time. And I got to road trip with my husband and my mom, and we laughed and we stopped and we did breakfast. Like, there were things that if the situation had been different, I would not have been able to do. So I think in the end, when you get to look back at this moment, are there things that if things had gone another way, what are some of the other things that could have happened? And not to live or get stuck in the what if, but just to consider that everything does happen for a reason. And yes, that gets cliche, but it's for real. And that's why I say it. But giving yourself the compassion to see things from a different lens is what changes the quality of your life even. I've been spending a lot of time and practicing more gratitude and thinking more positively about everything. And I can tell you from experience, it changes all the hurts. It changes all the frustrations. It changes all the things when you can see the good and the lessons in all of these things. Are you stronger because of what's happening right now? Is your mental capacity to figure things out and challenge something that others don't necessarily have like you do? What is coming of this situation that is absolutely, positively game-changing for you? You are resilient. You are brilliant. You are a lot of things. And because of this situation, you'll only be more of what you already are if you allow yourself to grow through what's happening right now. And while it may feel like the absolute end of the world, the thing is that it's not. And while you may not, again, won't even hear that right now, but I'm hoping that you do because you tuned in, it's not the end of the world. And think about all the weddings. Like, it's not just you that's going through it either. Think about all the weddings that have been canceled. Think about all the baby showers that have been canceled. Many major lifestones. That's a new word, lifestones. I'm making up a lot of words today. A lot of new milestones that are happening right now that is changing the way we all see the world, how we live, how we love, how we lead. So if it's any solace to you, you're not going through this by yourself. And if it's not to take away from your grief, but it's to give you, again, some kind of comfort about the fact that shitty things happen to awesome people all of the time. And this is a worldwide crappy situation. So we are all in this together. And when the storm passes, we will find ways to celebrate. But here's also a charge for you. Don't just wait for the major things in life to happen to celebrate. Don't just wait for the big moments to celebrate anything. All the little things are worthy of being celebrated. The dinners you have at home with your family, the job that you get to go to and come home from each day, the job that you got hired for, figuring out how to do something to gain a skill that you've wanted to gain for a while. Celebrate all the little things, because those little things in hindsight become really big things as well. But also, when you get around to celebrating the bigger things, you'll be just that much more appreciative. I'm saying that because a moment like this, not to take away from your grief, but definitely a moment like this, learn and see all the other things that are happening in your life every day through these moments you can celebrate. So when we're no longer fighting major cases, when there's a vaccine that's created, when you're not worried about the health and safety of your family, when you can finally go out and go to brunch or have that barbecue, or thinking about when you get that job that you want, so many things that'll be happening. Celebrate all of it. And what you'll find is that one day this moment will be behind you. You won't forget it, but it won't hurt hardly as bad as it does right now. And it won't be the same, but shift your mindset. Think about it differently and practice gratitude in all things. Again, like I said, I know it's not a formal and a traditional celebration, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you totally kick ass and you have done something absolutely significant. Clap for yourself. Clap for yourself. And if anything, I hope that these thoughts will leave you with something that helps a little bit with some of the hurt and some of the disappointment, and to give you, again, a perspective to work through what you're feeling right now. I don't claim to be a licensed counseling professional. I'm not. But I've been in a situation where it just absolutely sucked. And this was everything it was supposed to be. And it turned out to be nothing like I hoped it would be. That's really what it boils down to. And I didn't even realize that I was grieving that loss of my dream when that happened, how I envisioned graduation happened for me. It didn't happen that way. But the fact is that it still happened. I'm still Dr. Evangeline D.B. Hudson. I am still working hard to achieve other dreams that I have for myself. And at the end of the day, I know that what happened was so much bigger and deeper for me. And to be candid with you, all these years later, I now realize why my graduation was so disappointing for me. Because if it not had been, I wouldn't be able to talk to you today about what it actually feels like and how you get through it. If I hadn't gone through it, I could not tell you how to get through it. I could not give you the perspective that I had. So I know that my living and learning has not been in vain when I'm able to talk to you and to share with you the wisdom from life that some people don't understand. But from the perspective, especially as a first gen, like, you got this and everything is all good. And there'll be so many more things to celebrate in life, and still celebrate this. Still celebrate this when you have an opportunity to, no matter how big or how small you celebrate, do something to celebrate and recognize what you've done. Alrighty. Well, I think that is my spiel for the day. I want you to know that I definitely appreciate you. And if you enjoyed this, be sure to share it with a friend. Let's share the love and spread the light and encourage one another through all things. Until the next time, peace out, and know that I love you. I do. I really do.